Hello everyone. I hope you're all well. I hope Wednesday finds you well. I just thought I'd record a video for YouTube. I did do a Facebook Live yesterday to showcase my stamps, and I was going to upload the Facebook Live to YouTube, but I thought some of you may not want to listen to the chit chat that's on the Facebook Live. If you want to see the Facebook Live, that's on my timeline on Facebook under Tracy Evans. Or I have lots of inspiration, which I can just show you now, which is in my group. So if I just use my iPad, you can see that there's Tracy Evans and then there's Tracy Evans Craft Addicts. If you click on the Craft Addicts, I've got a group. And if you want to join that group, we have lots of inspiration using my designs for All and Create. And that will help you and inspire you, hopefully, to actually use your stamps. So, the idea here is that I do a quick overview of the stamps. On the Facebook Live, I actually go into detail with measurements and everything, but I thought it was important to at least think about those of you that don't use Facebook, but just use YouTube. So what I've got first is an A4 stamp set. This A4 stamp set is Elegant Spring Florals, and I've got a range of spring florals, as you can see, the tulip, the daffodil, and I've got text that goes with them so that you can create your own backgrounds and then add the flowers as your focal image. So the ones with the backgrounds you can use as a whole, or you can use parts of the background with or without. I've also got a lily of the valley on there, and I've got some text on there, again, so you can create your backgrounds. And again, a tulip collage, again, so you can create those backgrounds along with your focal imagery. We've also got a snowdrop, just so that it goes with all the spring florals. And there's a whole range here that you can mix and match with lots of flowers, especially if you like doing like a bouquet or something. Now, if I just take these stamps, if I just pull them off the acetate, I won't measure here because I have measured the stamps on Facebook, but just so you can see, let me just turn this around. The daffodil, for instance, is a substantial size. So it's a really, that's my hand, and it's a really good size floral image. Now you can shrink that, you can just use the flower head, you can use the whole thing, and you can just use parts of the text if you wish. So the idea is when I design them, you can break them down if you wish. So that is the A4 stamp set. Let me just move that in here, and they're all really good sizes, really good size stamps. Makes your eyes go a little bit funny because obviously I've been using them and put them back on the acetate, but they're a really good size stamp set and just a delight to use. I will show you a few samples to give you some ideas. Then I've got an A5 stamp set. And this one is called Crocus. And we've got on there a beautiful crocus, a viola, and these are my interpretations. We've also got some wording on there: crocus, tranquil, oasis of calm, a viola text, and a viola background stamp, so that you can use those in the background. Now again, let me just turn that over. These are substantial size stamps, as you can see, and the detail on the crocus is beautiful. It's a lovely size stamp, and it's got wonderful detail on there. So it does come out when you see the samples. You really can see the detail in the stamp. If I take the viola, is a really good size stamp that takes up all of my hand, and it's a really good size stamp, and it's got text on there and lots of, let me just turn that over, lots of little elements as well for you to use. So it works beautifully in projects, and again, when I show you the samples, you'll be able to see that. So just That's the A5 stamp set. So plenty of possibilities with your background elements and your focal elements. But as I say, if you want to see full details, as in measurements and everything, you can actually visit the Facebook page. So that's my A5 stamp set. I've then got a couple of A6 stamps. And this one is called Tree of Life. And it's a beautiful stamp set. It's got text in there, a tree, and you can break this down. You can break these circles down, but it also works perfectly with my other circular stamps. And we've got the tree there as well. And they do look beautiful. Just so you can see the actual stamps themselves, they do look beautiful when they're used. And you've got wording on there. This one says foliage, branch, tree and bark, just so that you can see that. And if I just go through these stamps relatively quickly, I can then perhaps make a little sample as well, just to show you how to use a couple of those stamps. And I will be coming onto YouTube quite frequently to offer inspiration with old and new stamps. We've then got another A6 stamp, and this has got a lovely bird on here and some bird houses, and the bird houses go beautifully with the tree on the previous stamp set. And we've got a sentiment amongst the trees, wild and free, and this is a background stamp. We'll just pull that out. So this is a background stamp, and it's got all words relating to birds. So if you've got any of my previous release, that will work beautifully with that. We've got the wild and free, and then we've got the two bird houses, and the little bird is that the little bird house has actually got a little tiny bird on there on that one, and then we've got the bigger one, and all the hearts coordinate with the hearts that are on the bird as well. And then we've got a little stamp set. Let me just pull that off. A little stamp set which you can use like as embellishments, and that just says bird in there, and you can use that to create your background or to create a little embellished element. So it's actually got the numbers on there that are on the bird and also the word bird, and that just allows you to create your own background elements, etc. So let's just close that. I've then got three A7 stamp sets. We've got one, and we've got two wonderful background designs which coordinate with all the designs. So with those, we've got all those, and those are A7. Now these speak for themselves because they're background elements, but when you see my samples, you'll see that you can colour this beautifully, and this looks wonderful in the background. I've also created some smaller florals because I think it's important to cater for everybody and do different florals, just so that you can see that. With the glare it's a little bit difficult, but I will show you samples. And we've got, let's just put that so it doesn't make your eyes go funny. We've got Hello Daisy, we've got Flourish, and Spread a Little Happiness Wherever You Go on this stamp set. And it's a lovely little A7 stamp set. So those are my A7s. So let's just pick all those up. And as I say, if you go to my Facebook page, you can see lots of details and lots of pictures. Now, the cards that I'm going to show you now are all available on a workshop. I've actually created a workshop with these cards that's called A Myriad of Cards. It's workshop 69 and it's £30. I will add the details to the description, and I will see if it will allow me to add a link to our stockists as well. But if that doesn't happen, you can go to my Facebook page and you'll see a list of stockists there as well. So these cards I've created with the new stamps, and this is a workshop. So you can actually create all these cards in the workshop, and I think there are 11 cards that you can create in that workshop. These were all created at the same time, a variation on the backgrounds, just so that you can see that. I just love how these came out. And then with the leftovers, just so that you can see that, just with the leftovers. But it really does show that tulip, really, how it comes to life when you add that touch of colour. I've also got the Convallaria, or the Lily of the Valley, stamped here, just so that you can see that. It just gives some ideas on how you can use the stamps. And this is the sort of the scientific name, Convallaria majalis. Not that I can pronounce it very well, but there you go. Let's pull these out just so that you can see these samples. And this is the Crocus, which was the A5 stamp set. And that shows just how, once you colour, how they come to life. And also you can see here that beautiful background stamp, how beautiful it looks in the background. And again, you create all these in the workshop. And I've tried to do as many varieties as I possibly can in the time scale I had. This one is the Snowdrop, and again just in a more muted palette, which works beautifully, just so that you can see that. And I do bring in some of my previous release, like this little blackbird here as well. And then those little florals that I showed you, this just showcases those little florals, just so that you can see that. And it also showcases that background stamp here. And I think when you see samples, you can see how the items come to life. But I didn't want to forget my YouTube followers who maybe didn't see the Facebook Live. I think it's important just to remember all your followers. So that's why I wanted to come on YouTube and do a quick, simple run through of the stamps and the samples, and also maybe make a sample as well. So this, I just love this tree. I just think it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I really do love it. And then, let me just, and then we've got a lovely, that shows the background as the size is, and then you've got the little bird in the foreground. And this is from a previous stamp set, but it just means that you can mix and match and use your stamps in lots of different ways. Then we've got the tree stamp here stamped in the background, and we've got those bird houses as well, which work really nicely. They work really nicely. And then this heart is from my toucan stamp set, this little heart that's dangling on there. And then you've got that little bird embellishment that I mentioned, and one of the little blackbirds. So just so that you know, they mix and match. And all these cards are on the workshop, Workshop 69. And if you want to join the workshop, I will leave my email address in the comments, just so that you can see that. Just holding this up just so that you can see all the detail of the card. And I'll just place those back in my wallet, just so then we've got a tidy work area, and I can perhaps create a card. The only problem is now I get stuck on what to do first. I enjoy using them all so much. It's just difficult to know what to use first. There's so many lovely designs. So just place these back. Just want to be careful, just so that those don't, you know, the cards don't get squashed. I've got lots of sisal nest just everywhere, but I do like my sisal nest. Just place that in there. Just keeping these in the wallet just to keep them nice and clean and fresh. There we go. We'll just move those out of the way, and then we can start on a card. So I have got no idea what I want to make, but I thought while we were here that we would make something. So what I've got is I've got a 4.5 inch by 6.5 inch piece of white card. And what I've got here, we're going to need the measurement of the circle. Let's have a look at the circle. This circle is around about 3 3/4 inches across. And I think we'll go for some sort of nice colours. How about I just use colours that are on my desk? So I'm going to use these colours that are on my desk. So let me just grab a stencil. And of course, I should have grabbed the stencil beforehand rather than leave it until now. But I was umming and ahhing whether I was going to do a card or not. But I am going to do a card. So I'm just going to grab a couple of pieces of cut and dry foam, just so we can use that. And we need a blue colour, don't we? Just so we can use that. So what I'm going to do, let's just lift all these up. I was hoping that I'd got my smaller stencil, but I don't think I have. So it is what it is. Actually, could we use... Oh, no, I want to use the circles. Oh, I'm driving myself potty because I'm trying to decide which stencil to use. Ah, there we go. So what I was trying to do is decide which circles I want to use, whether I want to use the small ones or whether I want to use the big ones. And after all that, it's probably going to be the big ones. So what I'm going to do is let's place this a little bit higher. A little bit higher, a little bit lower. No, a little bit lower. I hope you talk to yourself as much as I do, because I'm just truly dreadful. So what I'm going to do is just add some low tack tape just to my piece of card. Just add the low tack tape and it just keeps that in place, just so that it's not going to move. Just keeps it in place for me. Is that, how much space is that? It doesn't matter. There we go. So we've got that in place. And what I'm going to do is just, because I'm a Miss Pernickety here, I'm just going to lift that up just for a moment, just turn it over, just so I can see how much space I've got. I think it's, let's just replace it, because I don't think it's quite where I want it. I know I'm a fusspot. But if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. I just want to move it along a little bit. There we go. I hope you faff as much as I do, because I'm terrible. Just make sure that you're using a low tack tape as well, because some tapes do tear. So just make sure you're using that low tack tape. So I've got that circle on there. Now I'm just using my stencils to see what I want to place on the circles. I think I am going to. Yeah, I am. So if you want to add smaller circles, just move your stencil up. This is the Totally Dotty A4 stencil by All and Create. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use picked raspberry. And we're just going to create a nice simple card. So we've got picked raspberry and I've got salty ocean. So I'm just going to blend my colour just over my stenciled areas. Now, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you add a good amount of ink to your cut and dry foam, so that you blend, so that you prime the cut and dry foam. Now, if you want to use your brushes, you can use your brushes. You know, you can use your ink blending tools, whichever you want. Now, what I'm doing is I'm not pressing on too hard. I'm just sort of blending lightly. So I'm not pressing too hard at all. I've just moved my stencil. So I'm not pressing very hard. I'm just pressing on very lightly. And what I'm doing is I'm just building that colour up. So I'm just building the colour up. So what I want to do then is I want to add a little bit of Salty Ocean. Now, the Salty Ocean is a very strong colour. So you don't want to add too much of that strong colour. You just want to add a light touch. Now, if you're not very good at adding light touches, then brushes are probably for you. Using sort of blending brushes, stipple brushes, just sort of something that enables you to add a light touch. So if you're not very good at adding a light touch, then the brushes are for you. So I'm just going to add a little bit more, and we're going to blend those lines out, no problem at all. So I'm going to go back to my first colour, just like you would if you were colouring with pencils. You go back to that lightest colour, and that lightest colour will just blend out those lines. So just pick up your ink. My cracked pistachio is so well used that the ink pad is no longer super juicy because it's a well used ink pad. So what you've got then is you've got some blended circles just inside your circle. So what you're going to do then is I'm going to take my cracked pistachio once again, take that cracked pistachio, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the blended colour just around the circle, just around the edges of the circle. Now what you can do is you can loosen your low tack tape and move your card around if you wish. I'm just going to work with it as is. Now just make sure, I mean, we've added that low tack tape so it protects the top of your card as well, just so that you don't go anywhere other than using the spit it out, Tracy, so it doesn't go any further than the actual circle. So just, there we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab a stamp set, and we're going to grab this stamp set, which is called Tweet Tweet. And I'm going to use that beautiful background stamp, the one that's got all the bird text on there. It's got all the bird, feather, so it's got all that on there. It's got twig, song, tweet, trees, branch, beak, fly, just so that you know what it's got on there. Just grab an acrylic block. Luckily I didn't tidy everything away. Do I just want an A7 acrylic block? I think I do. I hope you talk to yourself when you're creating, but I haven't planned this card. I just wanted to show you a few things stamped. I just think it's important to show you a few things stamped. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use my Salty Ocean. So I'm going to ink up the Salty Ocean. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some stamping inside this circle. So I'm just going to add sort of random stamping inside the circle. And at the moment, all as I've done is use two colours of Distress Oxide inks. So just to add that. Now what you have to remember, if you used, so let's just take this off the acrylic block. When you use an acrylic block and you've got this card that I've just picked up as a scrap that's on probably 300 GSM card, what you have to remember is there's a ridge on that card. So unless you cut it out of copier paper, you've got a ridge. So you just need to be aware of that. So if like me, you're using a scrap, then just maybe use your text stamp off the acrylic block, because then you can press just where that ridge is to make sure that you just get the wording in nicely. This is only a background, so it doesn't really matter. You're just creating a background. But you just need to remember that when you're cutting from card, when you're doing apertures, etc., for this purpose, it's probably better to cut out of copier paper. But I've just picked up a scrap of card that I want to use, and it seems a shame not to use it, so that's exactly what I've done. So let's just, now when you use your distress oxides with your stamps, what you need to do is just make sure you give your stamp a clean. You don't need to clean when you use the VersaFine. The reason you need to clean when you use your distress oxide inks is that it leaves that oxide layer on your stamp, and then when you come to use your VersaFine Clair, your VersaFine Clair looks a bit cloudy because you haven't cleaned that layer of oxide off your stamp. That's all it means. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my bird image inside the circle. I'm obviously going to cut him out as well. I want to cut him out as well, but I'm just going to stamp him because that just means I get a feel for where he's going. So just taking the bird, just ink that up. Just give it a good layer of ink. Just make sure you've got a good layer of ink. And then just add your bird. There we go. Just add that bird. And we are going to stamp and cut out the bird just so we can add that 3D element. So we will add that as well. So just stamp him, and what this does is it gives you an idea where your bird's going and how it will look. So that'll be perfect. So if I just get a scrap of white card, so we'll take a scrap of white card and we'll just stamp our bird once more. Now when you've stamped onto that oxide ink the image, if you're not going to put something on the top, then I would suggest that you blot that image just to make sure that your ink is nice and dry. So I'm going to stamp the bird, which I can then, and when I like in my workshop I may have used coloured pencils, but what I'm going to do with this one, I'm just going to colour with those distress oxide inks, just to show that you don't have to have too many products. Now I don't need to blot that because it's on a porous card. Now the reason I do blot is if you're going to cut out an image and you're going to handle it with your hands, you don't want to smudge that ink. So just make sure it's nice and dry. So just let's cut that out. Let's cut the card down just so we're not working with such a huge piece of card. Just makes it easier. Sometimes if you work with a huge piece of card, it just becomes cumbersome and it makes it difficult for you to cut out. Also, we've already got the legs on the bird, so you don't have to cut them out if you don't want to, but I actually want to cut the bird and just leave a little white border, so I would like to cut the legs as well. You don't have to do that if you don't wish. So I'm just leaving a little white border just around the bird, just so that that pops a little bit more. It's not much of a white border, just a tiny bit of a white border. Just so that pops a little bit more. So just cut out. Try not to handle your actual image too much, so that if you've got sort of sweaty hands, you're not handling your image and then you're not smudging it, because even if you dry or blot, you can still smudge it when it's only just been stamped, especially if you're cutting out like me straight away. So you just need to be aware of that. Just cut that beard out. And it's a lovely, lovely size, so it works quite well. So as you can see, I've not really handled the actual beard too much. So just cut that out. And I want it to look, now you could just cut the beard out like this. Let me just so that it's like that. But I want it to look like two separate legs. So I'm going to cut that out. And if you leave a little white border, it makes it a little bit easier. There we go. Let me just cut that notch off, because that's going to irritate me. Just being pernickety. There we go. Don't know where that dropped. But now I've got my beard that I can just add over the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of colour to my beard. So I'm going to take the cracked pistachio and just add a little bit of colour to the beard. Now, when you're blending, you want to make sure that your ink is dry. Again, you don't want to smudge that ink. So I'm just adding a little bit of colour just with the cracked pistachio. Just a little bit of colour. Just leaving some of that open area in the beard. And then I can use the blue. The blue's quite a strong colour, so I don't need to press that into my ink pad again. I just think there's going to be enough blue on there. There we go, just so you can see, it's just got a little bit of colour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some sisal nest behind. So just grab my sisal nest. I always have to reach for something, just so that we've got some of this, just for added texture. Plus I like to get sisal nest everywhere, which is just me, standard practice. Just grab that 3D foam. So I'm going to add some 3D foam to my beard. Oh, I've got a little piece stuck now. Just add a little bit of that 3D foam to my beard. You can use your 3D gel, whichever you prefer. Just a little bit on his tail. And then I can just sandwich that sisal nest just in between. Just, let's move this out the way. And then spread your sisal nest out a bit, and then you can just pick all that sisal nest up with your 3D foam. Just go around, use your sticky pads just to pick up any left that's left sort of lying around. Then you can add another layer of your 3D foam. Just add a little bit of adhesive just to make sure that's going to make good adhesion. I keep saying I'm going to order some more glue. I still haven't done it. Just add these. So it's now sandwiched in between, and I'm adding a second layer. So that means that it will just be raised a little bit more, which will work quite nicely. See if I can get these off quite easy. Normally I faff so much. It's only the smaller bits that I tend to faff with. There we go. Let's just add a little bit more adhesive just to the 3D foam. And what this will do is it'll add some size and nest, and it'll also add some dimension to our little bird. So it just stands out. Just spread those feet. There we go. And it just gives me a little bit of a 3D element. So that works quite nicely. We'll do something with his hat shortly. We can do something with that shortly. And then I'm just going to take this tree image. So the one that's the tree of life. And I'm just going to take that. And I'm just going to, let's grab a grey. So let's grab Morning Mist. So I'm just going to use my Morning Mist. Now I'm going to use the tree off the block for the reason I said before. Because this piece of card is not copier paper, it's got a ridge. So you could have stamped this before you added your sisal nest. It's entirely up to you. But I'm just going to add some, make sure I keep using the brown. The grey. Oh dear, there's no hope, is there? I can't even decide what colour I'm using. So you could have, because don't forget, I'm winging it. I didn't quite know whether I was making a card, how I was making a card. So when you're doing this, you could add your tree little stems before you add the bird. So I'm just adding these little tree stems just to the edges. Got a nice bit of texture with all this sisal nest, which is wonderful. It adds much needed texture, but it doesn't make stamping very easy. So just keep adding little bits of the branches, and go in different ways as well, different angles. Stamp your branches at different angles as well. So you're using your tree just like branches rather than anything else. You're using as branches just to add branches just to the outside edge of your circle, just to give it a little bit more detail. So let's just put that away for a moment. We will do something more to the hat, but I'm just going to take these off now and just bend it towards you when you're pulling your low tack tape off, just so that it doesn't rip your card. Just sort of, you don't want it to rip, so I just sort of pull it towards me just so that it doesn't it doesn't rip. And if you've got nice low tack tape, it should work beautifully. So then we've got, let me just make sure my hands are clean because we don't want to ruin our card. Just so that you can see this, let's lift this up. You can see that you've got a nice simple card. Excuse me. Right, what I'm going to do now is take my Inktense pencil, and I'm just, you could use a pastel pencil if you wish, and I'm just going to add a little bit of shading just around here, just so that it's a little bit more 3D. And I'm not going to use too much water because you've got that oxide ink that you've blended, and you don't want to add too much water. So blend that out. Just take your time just to blend that out. Just so that it gives it a 3D feel to your card. And let me just show you that you can see those little branches just stamped at the edge, just so that you can see that. Excuse me. What wording we've got? Amongst the trees here as a sentiment. What other sentiments have I got? I think I am going to put amongst the trees. Or, you see, you've also got this word that says bird here. I'm going to use that as well. So let's just take our bird off for the moment. And use the bird text. Just because it's a background stamp doesn't mean you can't just use the words that are in there and cut them up. You can do them that way as well. It's nice to have multiple options with your stamps. So just, then you've got multiple options with each of your stamps. So I've got that word bird now that I can cut up and use as an embellishment. I like using the bits and pieces on the stamp that you can use as embellishments. So I can add my bird there, which is perfect. And I'm not going to add a 3D element to this because I've added the 3D element to the bird, and I want it to look in real life when the recipient receives the card, the bird is raised and the bird text is in the background, and it appears to be in the background. So just add that. Then we're going to add a little bit of shading just around, I don't know what I'm picking my scissors up for, just around the bird, just so that'll stand out a little bit more. Where's our water brush? I put something down and then I can't see. I'm just using a little bit of water because I'm aware that those oxides are on there. So I don't want to wet that too much. Just so that it's the actual word. Let me just lift that up just so that you can see. Just so that you can see that. Just looks nice and 3D. So what we're going to do is then, pick your things up, Tracy. Remove that. And then I'm going to take the bird again. Now you could add glossy accents or anything like that to the hat. On this occasion, I don't particularly want to add glossy accents. I just like the fact that we've got that subtle colouring on there, and I don't want to sort of detract from that sort of touch of colour with a bit of a shine. I don't really want that, just for this project, that is. So we'll just cut his hat out, just so that we can have that little bit more 3D. And then in real life, it will really stand out. Again, another simple thing to cut out. There we go. Just going to add a little bit of colour to my hat. Well, it's not my hat, is it? We know whose hat it is. So let's just add a little bit of the blue, just so that we can, just a little bit of darkness on that edge. And then we'll just dome that. We could do that with our scissors and just put it on a soft mouse mat. But because it's so tiny, I can actually just bend that hat, just so it's got a little bit of a dome. And I'm going to add a little bit of 3D foam, just so that stands out a little bit more. I'm now messing with fiddly bits of 3D foam. You can use your 3D gel if you wish, but I just want this to be dry straight away. If I use my 3D gel, I'm going to have to wait for that to dry. Need that to be a bit smaller. Add that on top. So I'm adding 2 pieces of 3D foam. Let's just pick that up. Just going to add a little bit of adhesive for that. Even the little bits, it's important that you take time just to make sure that even the little bits and pieces work nicely. Just add that. So his hat's got a little bit of dimension, which I will pick up so that you can see. Let's just move that out of the way. Make sure that you've got no ink on your fingers, especially while you're working. And then we're going to use that sentiment from the bird stamp set, which says amongst the trees. I think that's beautiful, amongst the trees. And it's not too big, and you can cut it up as well. So we can use this little bit of scrap card, waste not, want not. And we're going to do that with black Nocturne ink. And when you've got a small sentiment, you don't need to press too hard, because it's a fine detail and it should be nice and easy to press. And when you're messing with those stamps, you're pulling them off and on the acrylic, on the acetate sheet. Just make sure that you clean your hands. So I'm going to cut these words up, just so that I can use them individually. Do you know that amongst isn't straight? I didn't put that straight, and I'm not going to, I'm sorry, it's going to have to, I'm going to have to do it again. And what you can do is when you put them on your acrylic block, you can put them on a lined mat so that you can line them up. But that wasn't straight, and I'm sorry, that's going to play with my head. It's going to have to be straight. That's better. I do actually think I stamped it ski-whiffed, if I'm honest. There we go. Oh, That's better, it doesn't make my eyes go funny. And it's a nice little sentiment, not too overpowering. Which, with this card being quite delicate, lots of open space, it works quite nicely. Just bring that in a bit, yes. So we'll add that to the base of our card. And sometimes it's nice just to do a simple card. Doesn't have to be overly complicated. Amongst the trees. And if you want, you can mask off the area and just add some colour and then stamp the sentiment inside if you wish as well. So that you've just got a band of colour across the bottom. So just give that a few seconds. So just while that glue grabs hold, let's just remove some of these bits of paper. And then we can mat and layer it onto our card. What we'll do is, while that adhesive here, before we add our shading, while that adhesive, oh, we definitely need to add some white splatters. So let's add some white splatters. Just a few white splatters that you can see. Then we'll just add that to a black mat, just so that that pops. And this is 1/4 of an inch bigger, the black mat. So the card was 4.5 by 6.5. And the black mat is 1/4 of an inch bigger. Now you normally see me line it up like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it a little bit different and just add it to the edge like this, just so it looks a little bit different. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add that to our white card. So just add that to our card, and again we'll add that to the edge just to give it a different look. And I do like to stand up, it just makes it a little bit easier for me personally. There we go. And then we'll just add that shading. Now we've given that adhesive a little bit of time to grab, we'll just add a little bit of shading around there. Let's remove that adhesive. This time I think I need a little bit of water just to add that shading. And I can turn my card, it just makes it a little bit easier. And the shading just makes it pop a little bit more. Just add a little bit. There we go. Let's just wipe up that. And that is our card finished. Just so you can see that. Just so that you can see the hat has got some dimension just on there. Just so that you can see that. The bird is a little bit more 3D. And you can see those branches in the background. And I wanted to give you something nice and simple to create, ready for when, if you order any of the stamps and then you've got some ideas, or you've got some of the other bird stamps and you can create the same. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're all well. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I shall see you all soon. Love to all. Bye for now.